So I'm now just going to get into inside stem slash screw and yokes, IS&Y gate control valves. There really isn't too much of a difference between them. I've already explained how this one kind of works. The only thing I didn't really mention before with the OS&Y is that this stem is all one part. Actually, if I showed you on the disc itself is attached to the very end. I'm going to go grab one quickly. So on this 10-inch stem right here, the disc is actually just attached right to here. So the disc itself just moves up and down with the actual stem, right? Whereas on an IS&Y, if I were to describe it, how would I actually describe this? On an IS&Y, it actually works more similar to the opposite way. Imagine if I were to flip this around. Pretend this is the disc. As I turn this stem, that disc will actually rise up or down on the stem along with it, like that, right? So that's how an IS&Y works. So an IS&Y, as you can tell, the body is so much bigger on this valve, and that's because that disc rises up into the stem. That stem doesn't physically rise up. It stays still where it is. So that means the only way this works is that disc has to actually travel along the stem and up into the body of the valve, right? So that should make sense. So that's kind of just the key differences between the OS&Y and IS&Y. Sorry, I don't have another one. That one wasn't the best example. It doesn't quite open as much as I'd like to see it, but we're going to just get into the pros and cons. Pros, just like an OS&Y, they are serviceable. They're very mechanical valves. You can take them apart and start playing around with them and start to service them. The hydraulics on them are also fantastic. Just as seen here, this is what I kind of meant by not the best example, only because that you can actually see a little bit of the disc in there. It's kind of showing right there. But on this is one that's just meant to be installed for like a hydrant when you're flow testing, or maybe it's just like a fail-safe means valve. So it doesn't need to be perfect. I just need this thing just in the event my hydrant slips off the stem and I can't shut it. So anyway, on a normal one though, it completely rises out of the way. It does have really good hydraulics, very similar to that of an OS&Y. Joint methods, typically flange. They can be grooved. When I say grooved, I'm kind of more referring to like when you're looking at indoor applications for like, we're going to get right into that. More for like wall PIVs. So it's not uncommon where you will see the control valves for sprinkler systems on the outside of a building. More often than not, you usually do see them chained up and locked up, and they will also have methods of supervision like PCVS switches on those valves right there. For those, they kind of come in two separate parts. There's a shaft that you have to custom cut, but the part that attaches to the wall, it's just basically a handle. There's sometimes a window on there where you can actually see it'll say open and shut. Your wheel you can just keep on closing it for as long as you want, but eventually you do have to insert your stem. You custom cut your stem, so that wheel will turn the stem, and on the inside part where your actual IS&Y valve body is, there's a square nut basically on the top, just kind of like imagine it's kind of cut off. There's a small nut on there. The nut is the stem, basically, the operating stem. And on that custom cut piece of steel that I was telling you about, there's just a square bell housing that just goes right over that nut. So you custom cut it. So on the outside, you just turn it, and it will turn that nut inside the building, which opens and closes the IS&Y valve. So that is kind of the application that you'll see them. Supply and discharge ports, same thing. They can have them. I haven't really seen too many with them, to be honest with you. That's kind of why I just put it in blue. They can, they might not. If they do, same application. If there is a supply discharge port, you might want to choose which way you want to install it. If there aren't any, you can install them in any orientation. It doesn't really matter in that sense. Same thing, accidental tampering. Well, for the one that I have, you can easily accidentally tamper that, but we are typically talking about just a round handle on the outside. Like that's what it would look like. There'd be a brick wall here, right? Little PCVS switch up here. So same idea. They do take a little bit of torsion. You do kind of have to intentionally go up there and close them to start to give you that signal. So And the underground application is where you will also see these types of valves. So basically, if I were to just kind of draw it out, you'll see them on PIVs. They're installed on PIVs. So if that's your grade level, you're going to have a PIV. Let's draw it in red. PIVs are typically red. They kind of look like hydrants. A lot of the general public, usually they'll see a PIV and be like, oh, yeah, the hydrant thing. So PIV kind of looks like this. Oh man, I am not good at drawing. I'm just going to draw it like the Among Us guy or whatever. There is a little operating nut here, just kind of like a fire hydrant. There is a little window here, and it will say open or closed. Open / closed. There is usually a handle that and a little thing here, or a little notch where when you put the handle on, you can actually just install a padlock through it, just as an extra means of tamper supervision. But you unlock it, you just put that handle up on your operating nut, and you just close it. So there's that window. Sometimes you will also see a PCVS switch right here on the side. That's a PCVS. And basically the way it works is you just have a stem, same thing, it's custom cut, comes down. We are now below ground. Depending on where you live, that will change how deep down you go, right? Depending where the frost line is. And I cannot draw valves to save the life of me. So this is going to be my valve, just like this. And there's my operating nut. This is going to display that little, that means it's my disc. That's my shut-off disc, basically, right there. Obviously, I am not quite drawing this properly because it's an inside screw and yoke. This does need to have a little bit of a beefier body on it. So we're actually going to draw something more like this. Like that. So we'll go kind of like that. Here's my operating nut and my disc. So that's kind of where my pipe is. My disc in the open position will actually be up here in the body. So I kind of over exaggerated kind of how that body looks like, but it's the exact same concept as what we're kind of looking at right here, but just like that. So the disc, when this is open, that disc is obviously sitting up here in this part of the body. And the same idea. So as we close it, that disc will close down and shut it. Right? So that's the outdoor application. There's something I was going to mention about this. Now I can't remember it. Something about PCVS switches, PIVs. Can't remember. Either way, that's it. So that more or less covers the inside stem / screw and yoke. So non-indicating is definitely a con. They're also bulky. Oh, no stem spear. Aha, forgot to delete that on my other one. But they are heavy bodies. They're just as heavy as an OS&Y in some senses. They're just as expensive, maybe a little bit cheaper. I'm not really sure. I haven't ordered them, but again, they're going to be a little bit more pricey. There's obviously more to it with that whole wall PIV I was just talking about. You're talking about ordering the valve. You now need to order that stem that's got to go through the wall, that custom cut piece of stem that with the bell housing. You need to order the valve handle on the other side of the wall. So there's a few extra parts involved in having this. But I guess in terms of real estate, they're typically underground, and because on the inside you just have a valve, the valve stem just kind of going out the wall. They're not quite as bulky in that sense. But honestly, if I had my choice, I don't think I would ever install a wall PIV in my building. I kind of think they're a little silly. I don't like the idea of someone being able to, just any passerby on the outside, just coming with a bandsaw or a sawzall or a zip grinder, just cut my chain and just kill the fire protection to my building or something like that, right? So anyways, that's that. And we're going to get on to the next valve.